So now is the time to welcome our guest from Germany, Tobias Meckle.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for the presentation. It was wonderful to hear what you're doing, and the picture showed that what you said in the beginning is true, that you do it out of love, and that's great to see. And I encourage you to keep on with your dream, that you will open the open facility soon. So I introduce our work in Germany to you with juvenile delinquents. So we are Prison Fellowship Germany, so we are a partner of Prison Fellowship here, and we have created an alternative to prisons for juveniles based on the APAC model. So it's a residential program for juvenile delinquents as the alternative to prisons. It's called Juvenile Prison in 3 forms, and the former Minister of Justice said we need an alternative next to the closed regime and the open regime prison with small group setting away from prison subculture run by an NGO in order to give better conditions for social learning and better start in life without crime. So most of our guys come from one juvenile prison. There's one juvenile prison in our state, and they do a very good work in the prisons. They have a lot of opportunities with school, with work education. They can learn a trade. But the problem always is the negative subculture. So it's not easy to work in that environment, yeah, it's the bigger a prison is and the more close the prison is, the more power has the subculture. And therefore it's not an easy environment to work in. So I have a lot of respect for the people who work in prison, as it's not easy to work in that environment. And yeah, our former prison director always said the more open the prisons, the less subculture, and larger closed correctional facilities promote a subculture that is hostile to education with a certain inevitability. And therefore I think it's very important that we all work together, that we are not opening big prisons anymore, but that we open small-scale detention centers. We are also members of Freescaled, as some others here, Rubicon. And so we are part of a European movement to fight for small detention houses. So in Germany right now there are 6 programs like that, prisons in 3 forms. We run 2 of them, Seehaus Leonberg and Seehaus Leipzig. And in Leipzig, in Germany, it's a state thing, so every state has a different prison system. So in Saxony, the laws changed again, that now we can also take in adult offenders. And there are actually 2 other programs which run prisons in 3 forms only for adults. So that's great that laws can change. They can change in Germany, and I'm sure they also can change here. Yeah, what are our goal groups? So juvenile prisoners, 14 to 23-year-olds, or adult prisoners if they are under 23. And now in Saxony we can take in up to 30 years old. We can also take in guys who have pretrial detention, so to avoid that pretrial detention, or residence as a condition of probation. And most of our guys are with us for violent offenses. So they are committed into the normal juvenile prison, and from there they can apply to our program. We go into prison every week and introduce our program to the new guys who come in, and then they can apply, and then the prison staff, the prison governor decides whether somebody can come to us. And then they stay their whole prison sentence with us. Usually they come to us within the first 2 weeks of their prison sentence. So that's the property. As you can see, we don't have walls, we don't have fences, no locks, no bars, but it's still a closed regime prison in the sense that the juveniles are not allowed to leave the property. If somebody does 1 step out of the property without permission, he has to go back to the closed regime prison. So the security here is not through locks and bars, but the security is through relationships, through trust, through responsibility. And either I have to build a 7-meter wall or nothing. If I would build a smaller wall, that would encourage the juveniles, I can jump over it. But what they are not used to it, that we come towards them with trust. And that's a higher hurdle for many of them than if I would have walls. So, yeah, most of our guys have never experienced a real family life. And therefore we want to experience them, want to help them to experience that, so we take them into families. Up to 7 juveniles live together with a family. So the family lives on that side, and here lives the juveniles, but during the day, the families and also the children are in the living unit. And through that, they can experience family life, they can receive love and acceptance, and for many of them, they don't have experience to eat a meal together, to play games together. And it's also a totally different atmosphere alone because we have children there. So the children are, in reality, our best educators, our best staff, because through them the atmosphere changes. So if the guys come in, they are welcomed by the small little child, and the child doesn't care whether that's a criminal offender or whatever, he doesn't know. So they are welcomed, and through that also they know why we have certain rules. They know why we have the rule not to use street language, not to curse, and they accept it because they know they are an example for the juveniles, for the children. And you can also see who is the boss at the table, and that's great to see that they also respond to that and also take on responsibility. So yeah, we live together, we share life together, play together. So very important is that we can create a positive peer culture. As that is the main problem, why work in a big facility is difficult, because there's always a negative subculture. So our goal is to create a positive peer culture, and where recuperandos are helping each other, where the participants help each other, take on responsibility for oneself, for others, for the whole group, and they also receive more and more status and freedom with positive behavior. So we also use the concept of confrontational pedagogy, confronting the offenses but loving the offender. So if you start in such a program to close one eye, you have lost, because then the subculture will win over again. So you always have to confront negative behavior. But also the concept of confrontational pedagogy says it doesn't mean you should confront all day long, but it means that you give 80% appraisal and 20% confrontation, but it's important to when a new guy comes in, a guy that has been with us for a longer time, he's his buddy, he's his older brother, and he takes responsibility, he explains him everything. He explains the rules. If we would explain the rules as staff, it would go in here and out here again. But if one of the juveniles explains it, they listen. They want to belong to the group, so they look what the others are doing. And the juveniles also have the responsibility to give each other helpful hints. So if they see that somebody else does something what he shouldn't do, he has to come up to him and tell him how we don't curse here. And he explains it why we don't do it. And then in the evening we all come together and everybody stands up and goes in front and says, okay, I've received a helpful hint from somebody, I spit on the floor, and then 2 others explain it again why we shouldn't do it. And then we have a second round where they give appraisal to each other, where they tell each other what went well during the day. And this reflection in the evening is very important, but for them it's very difficult. So far, if somebody has confronted them, there was only one answer. But also to confront others, to help the other person is a new concept for them, but at the same time, giving praise and receiving appraisal is new to many of them. So also it's important to give them responsibility for the group, for the behavior, but also they have areas of responsibility. That's also difficult in prison, at least in Germany. They are taking away all responsibilities. They don't have to cook, they don't have to clean, they don't have to do anything. Officially they have to work, but if they don't want to work, they are locked up in their cell and you can't do anything. So it's important to give them responsibility in order for them to learn responsibility. So we have individual sessions, individual counseling, we have also group discussions, but they are also led by a participant. So staff is there, but the staff just listens. And the role of the staff is to coach the participant, the group leader, and to prepare him and to talk with him afterwards, what did go well, what didn't go well. And again, they learn to help each other's problems. And if I tell somebody else, you can solve this problem this way, for one, the other guy listens much more than if I, as a staff, would say it. But also, if I tell somebody else, I'm telling it myself as well. And I'm learning through that process. So we also have the program Sycamore Tree Project, or Building Bridges, as it's called here. We call it Victim and Offenders in Conversations, where 4 to 6 victims meet with 4 to 6 offenders. They are not related, so they are not the actual victims of these offenders. But it's very important also for the victims. Many victims have nobody to talk about it, and therefore it gives them the chance to talk also suffering, to tell somebody their suffering story, and to confront the offenders, even though they are not their own offenders, but they can confront offenders. And it also gives them the possibility to ask questions. Why did you do it? What happened? How do you choose your victims? Questions they cannot ask in front of the judge. So for many of them, it's a start or an ongoing of their healing process. For the offenders on the other side, it's often the very first time that they really think about what I have done to my victim. And then for them, it takes 5 minutes and then it's forgotten. But that the victim suffers 20 years later, they can't even imagine. But then if they sit together with 6 victims and listen to their stories, that goes underneath the skin and that changes their thinking. Yeah, and oftentimes that's followed then by the wish to by the wish to have a direct victim-offender mediation. So we ask the victims if they want to meet with them, and then we have a direct meeting. We have a stage system. They can move up in stages, and through that they get more privileges, more freedoms, and also in the last 2 stages they can even go out in the community to a sports club or to a church or to a music club, so that they get used to liberty again, and that they can be integrated into the community even while they are with us. We have a grading system, so they get grades every day in house duties, in school, in work, in sports, in punctuality, in social behavior, in quality of work. That's a lot of work. Every educator, every teacher has to sit together with them and do these grades, but it's very important that they receive feedback right away. If I would tell them a week later, I would have forgotten it and the juvenile would have forgotten it, and that's also a problem in our justice system. Often it takes half a year or a year until they come in front of the judge. They don't even know anymore what is he talking about. So it's important that they get feedback right away, that you have to work on this, that wasn't really good, or that was great, go for it, you're doing a great job. So most of them don't have a high school diploma, they dropped out of school, 5th grade or whatever, and so it's important that they can get their high school diploma with us. We have our own school, and it's a trade school, so they can learn a trade. Here our woodworking shop, and we always make things for customers, because if I would grade something and throw it away afterwards, or build up a wall and throw it down, as it's often not possible otherwise in prison, it's very important that they see the customer is happy about it. And if they see the customer is happy, it gives them something back, and it makes them proud, and they can see I have abilities, I have things I can give back to the community, And if somebody is standing on top of the roof, in Germany we always have a celebration when the roof is ready, then they can be proud of something, and they can be proud of something positive. For most of them, they have never been proud of something positive. They have been proud of many other things, but not of something positive. And that's important, that they can see, I have gifts, I have abilities, and I can use them. So we have a metal workshop, and we have a landscaping, which is also great work, because you can see in the evening what you have done, but you are also tired and fall asleep at night, which isn't a bad thing. Also, sports and leisure time activities are very important, so they know what to do with the leisure time, because idleness is always bad, and oftentimes crime starts also out of idleness, and therefore it's important to help them what to do with your leisure time. So we start at 5:45 with jogging. If you come and visit us, you are more than welcome to participate. Or it's also important that we do sports where they can also use their power, but in a positive way, in a respectful way. So we play rugby or judo, and we also go out to have outdoor activities. And there it's also important that they see, I don't need drugs, I don't need alcohol to get a kick in life. If I do rappelling or go in the cave, I also get a kick, but without negative consequences. And many of them are gifted also in music or art or theater, and they probably don't even know it. So it's important to show them you have abilities and to train them to use their abilities. So they have done something to their victims, but they also have done something to community. So it's important for us that they also give back to the community. So from our center we go out to do community service. We have a graffiti fire engine, where we take away graffiti with them, or environmental projects, or we'll go in the home for elderly and help there in order to give something back to the community. We are a member of Diaconia, and as staff we want to live faith by example. We have different things in our daily schedule, a time of silence or a daily impulse for the day, where somebody gives a thought for the day, counseling, or Sunday we have church service. It's voluntary basis, so they can choose between church service and ethics. So it's important for us that they think about what are my beliefs, what is my foundation. Most of the time we have more than 50% Muslims, also that they think about what are my values, what are my beliefs, just so they think about what it is. We take in anyone, no matter what faith or religion, and we just want them to help to think about what are my values. Family relationships are very important as well, so the families can come and visit twice a month, and also we have activities for the parents, we have workshops for the parents, we also visit the families twice. Now we are coming to the daily schedule and to the stressful part, and maybe also why not everybody wants to come to us. So we start at 5:45 with jogging twice a week, and then time of silence, and a full schedule until 10 o'clock at night. So they work during the day or go to school, all on the premise, and then the helpful hints, and then in the evening we watch the news, and then in the evening there's always a different program. So it's a very structured program, because most of them have never experienced structure in their life. So it's also important to include the community. We also learned that from APAC. So we have godparents who visit the guys and take care of them while they are in the center, but then also afterwards. Our volunteers, we work with churches, with public institutions. We have activities for the communities, so the community can also come into our center. We don't have walls, so anyone can walk through our property, but we also have a lot of activities to involve the community. And the volunteers or an institution like ours is always in danger to be an island. But through the volunteers, they are bridged into the community, so a lot of relationships also last over the sentence, so they last even when the guys are released. Aftercare obviously is very important as well. So for one, preparation, that they have work, and so far we can say that everyone except of one, 99% of the guys received a job afterwards. It's not easy, but they can do internships while they are with us. They can go out to do an internship for a job, and when they are able to do an internship, they got a job. Because a lot of employees today are not happy about many young people who don't know how to work 8 hours, don't have social values, and so on. And our guys have trained that for a year, and therefore they get the job. So they can always stay in contact with us. We have the godparents, we have different aftercare possibilities that they can live with families on the outside. And we understand each other as a lifelong support. We take them into families, and you don't kick somebody out of a family. So they are our family, and that's also important. Like we have one guy, he was in our program, actually it's him up here, and actually he left or he had to go back to prison because he didn't abide to the rules. But we offered him to look after him as well, and offered him aftercare. So he took the aftercare after he was released. He finished his, he's now a carpenter, and then he became a master of carpentry, and he started his own business, and he even gave jobs to other alumni, to other former inmates from us. And then 10 years afterwards, his marriage broke down. And then he stood in front of my door, and he lived with me for a while, and now he lives close by. And he told me if he wouldn't have known where to go, most likely he would have gone back to crime, even though he has been living for 10 years a good life without any crime. So therefore it's very important that they know they can come to us any time of day or night, but also any time in their lifespan. We are there for them. We receive the running costs from the Ministry of Justice, and then we have a lot of different other projects where we get donations in kind or sponsoring through companies or foundations or churches. But the actual program is financed through the Ministry of Justice. So that was our program for juvenile delinquents as an alternative to prison. In the last 20 years, a lot of other things established. And we try to do everything out of a lens of restorative justice. Restorative justice is an approach to justice that focuses much more on the victim's needs and repairing harm caused by wrongdoing while holding offenders responsible for their actions. If you are sent to prison, that has nothing to do with taking responsibility, with active responsibility. So for us it's important that they are held responsible, that they take on responsibilities themselves, but most of all also that the victims' needs are seen. And it can be best achieved when victims and offenders come together with somebody from the community, and that they seek together a resolution that brings healing, accountability, reintegration, and also prevents future harm. So we have developed a lot of different programs, and we try to do everything out of this restorative justice lens. So we have victim support services, we have prevention programs here, and we also have programs in prison. So for example, victim empathy program, we have developed it in our program, but now we are allowed to offer it also in prisons. So in 6 different prisons in our state, we offer it. So we have training units, and we help them to see what they have done to the victims. And then in Saxony, we also have been asked by the Ministry of Justice to do restorative justice programs in 2 prisons. So we have a 3-step program: victim empathy program, and then victim and offenders in conversations where unrelated victims and offenders meet, and then a direct victim-offender mediation. We also have groups in juvenile prisons, social competence training, victim empathy training, and aftercare. And we also have been asked by the Minister of Justice to run one unit in the prison, one house. So actually two living groups with 10 young men each. And so we try to live a positive group culture there and give them daily structure and do what we have learned in our program also inside prison. We also offer accompanied community service for people where the judge says you have to do a certain amount of numbers of community service, but we accompany it. So a staff of ours goes out with them, and while they work together, they talk about what happened, why did it happen, what do you want to change in your life, what do you want to do in the future. And I think community service next to victim offender mediation are two of the best things in our criminal justice system, because the offender has to take on responsibility. He has to give something back to the community, and he has to be active. So in Germany, we don't really have a good victim support system. In about half of our states, there are victim support offices. In the other half, there are none, or at least not paid for. And therefore, we also opened our own victim support offices where victim can receive assistance, can receive counseling to help them to go through the aftermath of a crime. Yeah, that was it. So, thanks a lot.
Já moc děkuji panu Mecklovi, bylo to opět velmi inspirativní. Teď máme možnost mu položit nějaké otázky. A já...
So, are there any questions? I will actually have one myself directly. So now is the time for questions, and I will pose mine to begin with. One of the key aspects that I saw at the beginning was the presence of a civilian family that lives there with the juveniles, which is an amazing idea. And I wanted to ask, how do you get these families, where do they come from? Are they working for you, with you?
Yes, they are employed, or one of the family members is employed, the other does it as a volunteer. And we just look for them, and we never had too many applicants, but we always had the right applicants at the right time. Obviously, it's a great challenge to take in 5 or 7 older brothers to your own children. Yeah, but also for the children, they have to share their parents, but at the same time, they always have guys who play with them. So also the families, which like most of them stay with us up 5 to 7 or 5 to 10 years. And also the guys, the families who left, the children always ask, oh, when do we take in guys again? It's boring now. Where are my older brothers? So it's great to see that it's an enrichment, but obviously also a challenge.
No to nepochybně. Děkuji. Kdo dál by se chtěl?
Thank you. Any other questions? I have a similar question. It was interesting to see how broad your activities are. And my question is, where do you find the people to do these activities? Are they more volunteers, or are they rather employees?
Both. We have staff, we have employees, but we have also a lot of volunteers. Alone in that one center, we have about 100 volunteers. Some of them come and help once a year, but a lot of them come every week. Like on Monday nights, we have the leisure time activities, and so the juveniles can choose between going to judo, mountain biking, learning the guitar, learning piano, and we have volunteers doing all these services. So volunteers are a very important part of the program.
Děkuji, prosím.
I had a question just about the age limit going up to 30, I think you said at one point. What's the advantages and disadvantages of having the age limit go up to 30 rather than stop it at sort of 18? So in England, most of our sort of juvenile facilities are just up to 18, possibly 19. So yeah, I'd just be interested in what the benefits are of extending that age limit.
Right. So for us, it's a great opportunity. For one, we can take in more people. We can give more people a chance to be in part of our program. But also, the older guys give stability. So if you only have under 18 years, you have a lot of life. And but also, yeah, if you have older guys, they give stability. And obviously, that can be dangerous. So it can create a negative subculture if the older guys put peer pressure on them. But in such a small setting, we know very well what goes on. And it's a very positive setting. And therefore, also the older guys take on responsibility, and then they can be good role models for the younger guys. So for us, it's very good, as it gives much more stability as if we would only have the very young guys.
Tak myslím, že velmi, prosím, tam ještě jedna otázka.
Hello, and thank you. It seems like at this point you have some great results that can kind of speak for the concept, but could you maybe share a little bit how it was at the early beginning, gaining support from the greater community and maybe people that are completely kind of unaware of the social impact of what you're doing and how to kind of get them on your side, please?
Right. Obviously, in the beginning it wasn't, yeah, the neighbors didn't want us, and there was a lot of protest, and nobody wanted us to be in their backyard. Yeah, once we start, well, for one, before we started, I went to all the neighbors personally and introduced them to the program and told them what we are going to do. We had open discussions, yeah, where we invited all the community, but then the turning point was when we started, because then the people saw that their expectation didn't come true. So they expected that our guys stream around the area and everything is unsecure, but our guys are not allowed to leave the property. And so we have a very strict daily schedule and very clear rules. So anything they were afraid of didn't happen, and the opposite happened. That we give back to the community, we do community service, and also when they come to our premise, yeah, they are welcomed by anyone, also by the juveniles, and so they experience a totally different atmosphere than what they have expected.